Oh, good. I'm glad you're all right. Yeah. Okay. This is weird.
Oh, I know. I'm sorry. I wish there was a way to figure this out.
I wish she on your iPad. Is she on a laptop?
Yeah.
The laptop's there.
We've already gone live. Otherwise, the only other thing we could possibly think of would be an iPad.
An iPad? Doug's
Yeah,
got
I don't
one.
know.
Doug?
Send that same link to Doug.
Okay, send it to Doug. Yeah, I'll just forward it on to you.
On that text and see if he can join the room.
Okay. I'm forwarding it to you, Doug, right?
What am I doing?
On your iPad.
What are we doing with the iPad?
To see if you can join the room on your iPad. Okay. Email I just sent.
And we're muted right now. Everything's live, but there's the possibility if it works on the iPad better, we'll just have you switch over that, and we'll just kind of
That's
not
fine.
use this channel.
Yep.
Who is it?
Okay, if you put Doug.
iPad.
Oh.
I had like 30 questions to ask tonight. Now I forgot because of this.
Join room?
Yep, join room.
Hi, Doug. Good to see you.
It's onto the television. That's right, Doug's got it linked to the TV to watch this. Okay, so let me.
Doug, you go ahead and talk into that. And are you
Okay. So.
Okay, you're gonna have to get the devices out of the same room.
I'm getting echo because of that. Yeah, but it's still probably. How about
We're
that?
not muted.
Can you hear me okay?
We can, Doug.
You can?
Yes.
Was a time of the preacher when a story begun. Choice of a woman and the love of a man, and how he loved her so dearly. He went out of his mind. Well, she left him for someone that she left behind.
Hey, everybody. If you hear strange noises behind me, it's because Anna Balfour is somewhere in cyberspace trying to figure out her microphone, even as we sit here on my side porch. Hey, there she is. How you doing there, Garrett? How you doing there?
I'm better. We got this all figured out. Sorry for the slight delay, folks.
Yeah, we had a little bit of a delay there, and hope that you are all doing well. Hey, Doug, you need to be quiet back there. We're listening to you.
We hear everything.
We hear everything that's going on.
We see you when you're sleeping,
Uh,
and we know when you're awake.
so guess what, people? I wish you had that video I sent you earlier today, Garrett,
Oh, hilarious!
about what's going on at my house. Maybe we'll.
What's
post
going
that
on
or
at your
something.
house, Ronnie?
I sent him a Outback-styled video of the air conditioning tech here at my house, even as we sit here outside on this porch on a beautiful evening. So, God willing, fingers crossed, and all those other things, we'll have air conditioning here in a little while. Watch him come in
That's
around the
fantastic.
corner and ask if I can help him with something or sign some papers while we're in the middle of this thing. So.
That would be fun. leave me hanging. We hope everyone's doing well this evening.
We've got several folks who are coming on here. Already got our crowd started tonight. Thomas is the one who told us we were not muted. Sorry about that, Thomas. Jane McCauley, Charlene Hale, you are not muted. Yeah, we know. Jeff Allen is
We
watching.
know now.
Vicky Tuberfield is watching. Patty Rand Allen is watching. Sarah Brunson, Peggy Fogarty, Sally Gaskin, Victoria Hunt, Janet Starr, and Gail Speller. Everybody's on here tonight, so fantastic.
I'm glad you didn't say any choice words when we were unmuted there.
Well, you know it happens sometimes.
It happens.
What can you do?
That always
What
makes
can
you
you
think
do?
of Forrest Gump. It happens.
Hey, so let us tell you what's coming up
Yeah.
Sunday. We're going to have two services, as we have had two services. So there will be a 9 o'clock service, and there will be a 10:30 service.
In person.
In person.
Yeah, live.
Live gatherings.
At the church.
With mask and social distancing, and
Hand sanitizer.
we've had very good safety protocols. Even this past week when I invited people to sing, they were like, very careful,
It sounded exactly
very
what our
careful,
microphones
very
sounded
careful
like a
in
little
their
bit ago.
in their singing. The 9 o'clock service is more scaled back. It's a lighter service, and then the 10:30 service is the full band. But then, Garrett, you might want to explain what we're doing in the meanwhile.
In the meanwhile?
The virtual service.
Right.
Stay with me, man.
Oh, man, this whole running tech thing and listening at the same time, it's fun. So, yeah, we are. Do I tell them all the trade secrets here?
No, don't tell all the trade secrets.
I don't want to tell all the trade secrets. So, we are going to be doing a virtual service at 10:45. So I made the video announcement. I think it was yesterday. All the days are just kind of mashed together lately, but I made the video announcement on Facebook that on Sunday, starting at 10:45, we're going to do our virtual service. We're going to be showing our service live on Facebook. So if you got accustomed to doing that and joining with everyone else on Sunday morning at 10 o'clock when we were doing it from the upper room, we have that going for you again. So we heard from a few different folks that
several people.
Yeah, several people that really missed the interaction from our Sunday morning gatherings online. So we know this is a safe way for a lot of people that are staying at home to continue to interact and be a part of our community, whether near or far. This is just a really great option. We figured out a way to make it work. And so we're going to be coming to you live 10:45 Sunday on Facebook. So it should either pop up on your newsfeed, or you could go to the Simple Faith Church page and scroll down and it will show right there. We will also be posting it to YouTube for those that want to watch later on. So yeah, that's what we have going on. Big news. It's fun.
It's essentially 3 services and 2 in person and 1 virtual. It's not yeah, they think you're holding the microphone
just
like
saw
James
that.
Brown. So
Well, it's
I
like
love that.
If I let go with my foot, it's out there, and I don't know. I can't hear myself. I feel good.
I feel good. Yeah, all those other things. Do you feel good
or
tonight?
Aerosmith.
Are you more relaxed now that you got all the technology working?
Yeah, it's one of those things like you just, if it all falls apart, it's your fault.
The crazy thing is we discovered that with so much technology today, and you probably noticed that when you're watching at home via Facebook or YouTube, so much of the technology today is geared toward mobile devices. And the struggle we were having, and Anna Balfour is going to be joining us. What do you need there, boss?
You're coming in hot, man.
You're
coming in hot.
I can fix that. All right. Is that better?
Talk to me.
Talk to me right there. Talk to me. Tell me. Is that better?
Who, me?
No. He's
That
messing
sounds-
with me, Anna. So
Oh,
hold on just a
I'm messing with Ronnie.
So what we're discovering with technology is so much of it is mobile based, mobile device based. So Anna jumped on tonight with her laptop, connecting to our conversation tonight through my laptop, and so we had to throw the laptops out and go to mobile devices, and it solved all the issues. So proprietary mobile devices. It's 2020. It's the world in which we live. I reached out to Anna Garrett. Reached out to Anna this week because we were talking about our Q&A and what was going to go on this evening. And I had told him that whenever the issue of resentments or forgiveness or anything to do with the past comes up,
Mm-hmm.
that without fail, it is the topic that I get the most feedback about. It's really close to the heart for everyone, just everyone, because the longer you live, the longer your past, and the longer your past, the more there is to work through. And
Right.
Anna, and I'm going to let, when we go to her here in just a second, Anna, if you would, tell us about your background and about your specific training and the own journey that you've had. So, Anna, let's go to you. I'm going to step aside for just a second and make sure everything's okay around the corner. Go ahead, Anna.
So yeah, I'm a clinical psychologist, trained initially in the UK, and actually was chartered, which means it's the equivalence of a doctorate before it was actually a doctorate. So I've been working for 36 years, I guess, with individuals, with couples, with a context sometimes of being in a specific Christian religious community. We worked with Youth with a Mission for a while. So with missionaries, was doing a lot of work, as well as with children that were street children in Bogota. Then we moved here in 2006 and had a private practice in Philadelphia. And very much that intersection of psychology and faith issues that come together. And more recently, I'm really tailing off. That's the theory anyway. And I've got that echo, Garrett, so I feel like I've got voices in my head, but that's fine.
Yeah, please explain the voices in your head. What is that about?
You don't want to know.
What would you call that? I know exactly what you mean. It's funny for those on the other side of this, those that are watching, wherever they are. I mean, they're hearing this clear and plain as day.
Good.
But in our head, when we have our earbuds in, there's this constant echo delay, and it is just it drives us wild. That's the weird part about this whole thing. The technology of this is it's great for everyone else. But so what led you?
Actually, Garrett, if I can just chip in just the other bit in terms of I'm actually got licensed in Pennsylvania as a professional counsellor, so that's the kind of license I operate under. But I've had all the psychology background as clinical background.
So what led you to pursue that as a profession?
Actually, it was a guy. There was a guy I really liked when I was 17, and he was studying psychology at university. But also the interesting bit of that was that he was the pastor's son, and he got a lot of flack for studying psychology. And I did too when I was 18 and was said I was going off to university to study psychology. But there was something in me that was really kind of quite stubborn and said, I want to make it work. I want to make the psychology faith bit go together. And then it was totally no. You didn't really see a counselor. If you were a Christian, you just had lots of prayer and you crossed your fingers really and hoped and prayed that things would work out. And it's funny, all the things that I enjoy now and I'm benefiting from, like meditation and mindfulness and yoga, were almost like forbidden and of the devil Whereas now I see very much that all the science behind all of that is necessary, and it's how God's made us. And we're not divided into three bits of the spirit and the soul and the body, or and the mind, if you want four parts. We're actually all integrated, and everything affects each other, which gets back to Ronnie's comment about when we talk about things like resentment. You can guarantee that will trigger off responses in people because it affects us daily, and the impact of that when things aren't dealt with.
Anna, tell me, before we sort of get into the crux of talking about resentments in the past and making some peace with those things, tell me about why your particular tradition was, because I would have that same experience, frowned upon the psychological sciences, so to speak.
Yeah.
Was it lack of faith? Was it you didn't believe enough, or to study psychology was to disappoint God in some way?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of those things. It did imply a lack of faith. And there was one church I was in when I was praying with a couple. I was working with a couple using psychological strategies and approach. And meantime, they were actually having prayer from people. And I was told to stop doing what I was doing with the couple and forbidden to meet with them because they said I was doing God's job for him, which was all a bit weird. But they felt they should just be prayed for. And it was somehow a threat to God if there was anybody else involved other than a pastor or somebody of a faith issue. I think there was also the scary stuff about Freud, which is all the sexual issues. And certainly in my upbringing, you didn't talk about sex. We were all kind of like neck up and don't go any further down. But that's for another day, probably.
That's a great comment, though. I mean,
but yeah, so a lot of fear, I think, about the unknown. Whereas, of course, now there's so much research and science about the effects of the brain and how the chemistry in the brain. It's not voodoo or weird stuff. There's a very concrete reason for why we think more easily negative thoughts than we do positive, because negative stick. They're just like Velcro. They stick more quickly and easily to our brain and what's in it than positive thoughts, which are more like Velcro, more like Teflon, when they kind of slide off. So, a lot of fear around psychology.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's exactly the most recent studies that I've read, and you and I, we've talked about it over coffee. So we've had this conversation before. We'll bring everybody else into it. That your brain literally has these grooves, and exactly what you said. We are programmed, and it's probably because of just the human drive to survive against difficulties. We're programmed to absorb what is negative and to hang on to it much longer, and it requires multiple positive reinforcements to overcome any negative. And I think we're at the state of probably why past hurts and past resentments, why they are so difficult to deal with, because you can have 14 tremendous experiences, positive, wonderful things that happen in your life, but the one tragedy, negative thing will consume the other 14.
Yeah, and that's interesting, because the research suggests that it's 15 seconds that we are meant to hold on to a good thought to actually have effect and change the pattern. You mentioned 14 bad experiences, and we get that one and we lose it all. Yeah.
So you work with people across the gamut, couples, individuals, families. Yeah. So when you encounter someone who is really dealing with past hurts, past resentments, where do you begin with them?
Where do you begin? The good place to begin is actually to listen and to let them talk. But that's easier said than done, because often it's painful to talk. But unless we actually start to unpack what's happened to us, and talk about what we feel, what we think, what we believe about the world, like this shouldn't have happened to me, then things aren't going to change. So the first place is actually to really understand their story. And people aren't often used to telling their story in that way. Particularly, I think, if people are people of faith, it's hard because you have to talk about pain. You have to talk about things that are difficult. And we have to acknowledge that we haven't maybe been what we should be. If we've grown up thinking everything, we should be nice to people, we shouldn't hold a grudge, that we shouldn't be angry. So first of all, people have to get over those hurdles, that these are natural reactions when things happen to us. And unless we actually get in touch with those negative thoughts and negative feelings, then we're not going to get anywhere. And that takes time and permission, allowing yourself to do that.
There is, and I think my friend David Beavers has joined our watch party here. And David may have to chime in with the exact phrase that I used. But I think I used the phrase toxic positivity. I need to clarify that. What I mean by that is this very false Christian notion that everything is good all the time.
Yeah.
Do you see that as a barrier, based on what you just said, from folks actually doing some hard inner work?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I hate those phrases, those bumper stickers like that, because actually that's not the real human experience. And, we've only got to look at scripture and stories there about people, shouting, crying in pain, and getting in touch with how we're made. And if you just think about how, if you pass a stove, and if you put your fingers on the gas that's burning, you will get hurt. But if you have leprosy, you will put your fingers on the flame and you won't get hurt. But you won't, opposite. You will get hurt. You will get burnt. And we need to be aware that the emotions that we have are actually a signal for something that's going on inside. And if we block those emotions, if we detach from them, put them on one side, or say, as I was growing up, I've got to be a good girl and I can't be angry because, we're not meant to be angry. So you push it all down and then it's a real barrier. But, we all do that. They're natural defense mechanisms. And some of us turn it inwards and just be very controlled. Others of us push it out and we're just kind of like the angry young man. Other people just go numb. Lots of different ways that we cope with pain. But that's why we have to work out how we're coping and what the symptoms are, so that we can actually uncover it and start to deal with what's underneath.
So you sit down with someone and they begin to talk, and they talk about past hurts, past traumas, because there's all kinds of, there's a million and one ways to be injured emotionally, spiritually in your past.
Yeah.
And if you listen and they begin talking, you've already mentioned anger. Typically and I'm asking this question to help folks who may be watching this later. What emotion do you encounter first? When they start talking and start getting honest, what emotion comes to the surface first, typically?
Maybe it's not quite an emotion, but a lot of guilt that they feel like this, because they feel they should have dealt with it, and then sadness and anger with themselves for not dealing with it. And so it's helping people understand that they're natural reactions, and then moving beyond that to see, well, what's underneath that, which is maybe you learnt some stuff as a kid, which is where it's important to understand where you're coming from. Mm-hmm. So maybe you had some rules when you were growing up, like don't share what you're feeling, or if you're angry, then you go up to your room and you're not to be angry. And actually, it's one of the things in raising my children. I think I was a bit scared of anger, and I would handle their anger a bit different now, rather than just saying go and sit on the stairs for time out. I think I talk a lot more about, well, what's making you angry? What's triggering that anger?
Right.
Yeah.
We'll cross-pollinate here. I know that you're familiar with the Enneagram, and folks may not be surprised at this, that Anna and I are the same basic personality type on the Enneagram. And
well, actually, Roddy, we revised that.
Oh, you have revised yourself.
And
growth.
Yeah, I think I learned to be the same number as you, because I was growing up in that environment, that everything, I've got to look good, everything's got to be perfect. But actually, Doug will tell you, when it comes down to it, I'm a bit slapdash. I'm not as detailed. Good enough is good enough. So my real core me is a bit different to you, but on the surface, we can have that discussion another time.
So I like that, though. I want to have that discussion now that you're revising yourself.
Yeah.
But what you've just said, the point remains. Resentment, anger, for you, personally can be a real big issue. I'm not throwing you under the bus or trying to draw something out of you that you don't know about yourself. But do you find that to be the case, even with personality changes and growth, that you can sort of recognize the resentment, the past hurt in someone else because of how you've carried it yourself?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. I mean, and I think you talk about how you've carried it yourself. And I think now, much more than even when I first trained 30, 40 years ago, we now know that we carry trauma and pain in our bodies. And, I'm really aware of that. In fact, I'm seeing a chiropractor and a PT at the moment, ironically. And somebody said to me, wow, the body keeps the score is one phrase. Another is, the body holds the pain. And somebody said to me, the body hides the pain. And I think my body has actually hidden some of the pain and anger because I wasn't able to let it out. So now I'm learning, even at the age I am, to say, hold on, what am I feeling here? What's going on in my body? And that can often be a clue, I think, for all of us, if we actually take a step back when we're noticing an interaction with somebody or a memory that surfaces, finding out, okay, where am I, what's going on in my body? And sometimes we can then close our eyes, which is what I do in therapy with people, and say, okay, just hold on to that feeling. You've got that pain across your chest. Just close your eyes a minute and just think back to when you were small. Do you recognize that feeling? Where might you be? What might be happening? What might somebody be saying to you? What might somebody be doing to you? And that can be a good clue. And then, amazingly, people get very emotional and it triggers emotions, which is really what I need to work with, what people need to look at before there's healing. Because it's no good if we're in our heads. And I think often we keep in our heads a lot. We have to get into the body, which again was a problem, I guess, in how I grew up and you grew up, because the body wasn't something that we were really in touch with. So the body really did, I think, hold all the pain. And now we have to unravel that.
That just rings all the bells. Like you, I see a chiropractor now. And
yes,
it is incredibly spiritually therapeutic. And that
Yeah.
sounds weird to some folks. Go, oh God, Ronnie's gone off and he's doing
You're a new age man.
New Age holistic medicine and blah blah blah. I don't mean it like that. But I can tell you that tension is carried in my body.
Yeah.
And for me, no amount of meditation, prayer, and stillness can sort of move it all out. There has to be a physical component to it.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I can go into my chiropractor's office. She's very good, and lay down on that little crazy table that they have, and she can put one hand between my shoulder blades and know what kind of week I've had.
Right.
And so that's pretty remarkable in itself.
Yeah.
You may have a question. I think I actually have the air conditioning guy knocking on my door.
Yeah.
So Garrett, let you and Anna talk a minute, because Anna Garrett has picked up some new books, and I'm very proud of him.
Okay.
Brene Brown's books on
Oh, great. She's
the
a
gift
good
of
author, good
imperfection,
writer.
and so I'll let y'all talk about that for just a second.
I actually haven't started reading it yet.
Oh.
But
No
I've
use
been
just having the book, Garrett. You've got to read it.
I know I have a large growing stack of books that I need to get to, and I have like 3 Brene Brown books now, and that pile just keeps growing and growing and growing. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, you guys can't see me because I had to, while Anna was talking to Ronnie, adjust the camera so that the light could be shown on Ronnie, because obviously he's the star of this tonight. I'm just messing. So I missed part of the discussion earlier, so I might be repeating a question. I might not. I don't know, because I was adjusting those lights. But why is it that we hold on to resentment as much as we do? Why is it that we sometimes carry these grudges in this resentment, in this anger and bitterness, of past events or current events, whatever it might be? Why is it that we tend to hang on to those and not let those things go?
Right. Yeah. Good question. So, often they can become a bit of our suit of armor, if you like.
Okay.
If something's happened to us and we're resentful, we're angry, we say it shouldn't have happened. For us to let that go, as I said earlier, right at the beginning, it means actually looking at what happened, looking at the story, looking at our part to play, if that was an issue. Obviously, if you're children and you've been abused, let me be clear, that is not your responsibility and your fault.
Right.
But, later on, we develop this armor to protect us from what's underneath that pain. If you like, this skin and hard skin that forms on the top. But what we need to do is to look underneath that pain, but that's painful. And actually, to segue to Brené Brown, I remember hearing her talk once, and she was saying that she had a group of interpreters, sign language interpreters, and she wanted to get them together before the talk began because she wanted to know what the word was in sign language for vulnerability, which is what we all need to get to. And this group of sign language interpreters went away, and they came back and they said, "Oh, we've got the signs." And she said, "Great, tell me, what is it?" And they said, "It's this," which basically was kind of like weak at the knees. And she said, "Okay, weak at the knees, that's kind of vulnerability, but there's more than that. Go away again." So they came back again and they said, "Okay, how about this?" And they went like this. And they kind of like opened their chest. And she said, "Yes, that's it. It's opening up your chest, becoming really vulnerable. You see all the insides. And yes, it makes you feel weak at the knees. But when we do that, it's actually not pretty either, because the body inside isn't pretty. It's got all this stuff and this blood and things leak and whatever. Well, I hope they don't leak. But anyway, so she said that is what we need to do when we're looking at pain in our lives. We need to become vulnerable. And like, who wants to do that? But in the same as a physical illness, if, say, you've got a boil on your hand and, you've been bitten and you need to get rid of all the stuff underneath, it's no use just hoping it'll go away. Sometimes you actually have to lance it and to get rid of all the pus underneath, and then healing can come. And it's like we actually can't go on unless we actually look at the stuff underneath, which, going back to when things have happened to us, it's very painful and it's awful because it makes us feel so vulnerable and so exposed. But those things can actually become beautiful because they're a bit like what we call stumbling stones. And there's a thing about if you stumble over a stone, you can fall. But actually, a stumbling stone maybe saves you from other things that might have happened. And it can actually be something beautiful, looking at that pain and getting it lanced. But it's hard. So we need to be in a place with somebody. We need to talk to somebody, but we need to trust them. And that's a key to any kind of going forward, to be with a therapist, a counselor, a pastor that we know we can trust, or a friend that's going to hold that pain with us. Yeah.
We have a great question here that's on our feed, Anna. Vicky asked, do you think women hold resentment more than men?
Yeah, I was actually reading something about that this week that said there's something about women that hold on to it, whereas men their stereotypes tend to blow up and it's done. Whereas, if Doug and I have an argument, he's like, boom, he's out there. And I'm kind of festering with it, and it's meandering away. And you can imagine in my brain circuits, it's bringing all this other stuff in. Noting that, there's a lot of difference between women, within the women as well as within men. But generally, I think that's a bit true.
And some of that is how men and women are socially conditioned, right?
Yeah.
It's appropriate, quote, for a man to be, lose his mind and get angry and blah blah. But that's not appropriate for a.
Yeah. So I'm really excited. I think at how many more men now with the younger generation, it's kind of being okay to be more vulnerable, to be tearful. And that's really important. We all have emotions. Emotions aren't gender specific. They're the same way that we need to operate, whether we're male or female, or any other designation. Yeah.
So Anna, you were talking about, part of the process of getting past resentment is learning to be vulnerable and attack some of the sources of what caused the most vulnerable pain. What would you is that one of the biggest components to also learning to forgive ourselves for past hurts that we've caused upon ourselves and others? And really, what's the biggest tool to navigate toward forgiveness of self and others?
Yeah. There's it's funny, forgiveness didn't really used to be talked about in the psychology literature years ago, but now there's much more about it. And it's a process. It's often not a one and done. So there's forgiving other people and forgiving yourself. And I think sometimes, again, we can be very hard on ourselves and say, well, I've got to forgive them. Which, because who suffers in the end if you don't forgive? It's actually us. The person's moved on. We're just holding that and we need to free ourselves. But, it takes time. So being patient with ourselves, and even if you're beginning to think about, as a result of Ronnie's sermon, for instance, maybe there's a place for forgiveness, that's amazing. That's a real step forward. I would suggest starting to journal, starting to write what it is that you're feeling you need to forgive yourself for or forgive other people for. To forgive yourself, I think often we're very harsh on ourselves, and instead we need to offer ourselves mercy and grace. And it's like, I remember somebody saying, would you treat your dog like that? Well, I think that's a bit far-fetched. But, thinking about how you would treat an animal, would you treat them like that if they'd done that? No. And being gentle to ourselves.
So why are we the harshest toward ourselves, you think?
Why? Why are we harshest? Did you say?
Right, toward ourselves.
Yeah. I guess, I don't know. I mean, a lot of it is, again, our type of personality. If Ronnie mentioned the Enneagram, if we're perhaps a 1 on the Enneagram where we've got to be perfect, we've got to get it right, that's going to be the person that's really going to beat themselves up. I practice schema therapy, which is a great approach of integrating actually a lot of different therapies, but it's all about understanding what you didn't get, what you missed out on when you were younger, or even more recently. But there's different parts of ourselves. And there's some people who've got this really strong punitive part. And it's just all the time, it's that critical part that just beats ourselves up. And it's because, we know ourselves to some extent, and it's safer to beat ourselves up than it is to face maybe what other people have done to us or what we've done to them. We're a kind of a contained entity. Whereas if we have to go out of ourselves and think about other people, there's a risk. We've actually got to be vulnerable. We've got to face people and say, hey, I felt really hurt when you did that. And, it's vital for a marriage, relationships, friendships, work situations. Otherwise, we take all this stuff on ourselves. And then in the end, we can't function. We can't be who God created us to be because we've got all these things. We've got to make sure nobody sees, that we present a good side. And that, we look perfect.
Wow, that's a great answer. I want to go back to something you said a little earlier, and then I had to go run off and talk to the air conditioning tech. You were talking about once you listen to someone and they start talking, and sometimes it's not a specific emotion that comes up, and you invite them. Hold on to that feeling, that pain that you're experiencing. Don't you think that that's really, really sort of the root of some of this failure to resolve the past, is that it hurts so bad sometimes to get close to what has harmed us that's really sort of, this is my experience personally and working with people, that's sort of the first obstacle that they have to get over in order to kind of get moving. Yeah.
And I think we don't like looking at pain. We don't like looking at tough stuff, do we? We'll do anything to avoid it.
No.
TV, food, alcohol. We just detach. We don't have feelings. But that is the root, because often there's patterns in our life that get to be repeated. So we might find that something happens to our relationship with somebody and we end up feeling angry and resentful they've done it. And then when we start to look at it, we realize, this is a bit of a pattern.
Yes.
And actually, maybe it began way back when we were small, and we learned to just cover it up, or to say, well, okay, I'm really sorry. And you're that sort of a compliant surrenderer type person. Or you're maybe the bully and attack that will just bully and attack people. All of it stops us looking at what's inside.
That's really some of the feedback this past week after the talk on Sunday was people would said things to me like, I'd like to say that I really enjoyed that, but I didn't because it made me think about some things, or it took me back to years ago. There is that uncomfortableness of having to. We're just not good, especially as Americans. We're not good with sitting with our pain. We're not good with inner work. We're not good with knowing ourselves, especially when a culture is a culture of distraction and immediate news cycles that cycle through. It used to take a week. Now it takes 6 minutes. And I think that the coronavirus and quarantine has forced a lot of people to sit still.
Yeah.
And you and I have had this conversation as well, in that very apocalyptic way that it reveals things about ourselves. And I see a lot of angst, and I see a lot of upheaval, not necessarily on what somebody else is doing, but having to sit still with what they have done or not done.
Yeah.
Do you see more people in the last 6-7 months kind of reaching out to you and saying, I might need to revisit this, or I might need some help coming back to this?
Yeah, totally. So as I said, I moved down here, closed my practice, and wasn't going to continue, but I've had several old clients reach out to me, and actually talked to somebody today from the UK that somebody connected with me with, because I think you're right. When we can't do stuff, there's always a choice, but we can start looking in at what's going on inside. And I know several couples as well that, this has been the time when, if you were having difficulties anyway, and then you're stuck in a house together more and more,
oh my gosh, yes.
That's really difficult, and things come to the surface. We call them, wounds that have happened to us, be it early wounds when we were small, in terms of attachment, and that's our prime need as people, to attach. And that goes on. We want to attach. We want to be connected, however old we are. And that this sort of environment has created a fertile bed of soil, if you like, for us to start to look a bit deeper. I've been working a bit with somebody that's dying, and that's been really interesting in terms of the whole, when you get to the end of life, wanting to get things right and wanting to deal with that forgiveness aspect of life, of wanting to ask others for forgiveness and wanting to ask them, people to forgive you. So again, I think we're all much more aware, some in some countries more than others and some states more than others, about the vulnerability of life. And there's that sense that I want to get things right with people, which has been another, I think, positive fruit of this time.
Right. There's some great comments and questions coming in suddenly in a flurry here. So let me just run them by you and give quick answers, because as usual, we're already 50 minutes in. Carolyn asked about, she actually had some success with hypnosis to draw out some things buried deeply. Have you ever had any experience with that?
Yeah, I did a training course once at the disconcertion of some of the people in my church, and actually as you can imagine,
I love that.
That's a great answer.
But realizing it's just a very deep form of relaxation, very deep, and it was quite successful. But there were some people that I tried the deep relaxation with, and it just didn't work. And it's a whole different topic to talk about the television show stuff.
Garrett's wishing you could hypnotize me right now, he said, but we're going to keep moving. We're going to keep moving here.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, for full disclosure again, Garrett, when I have coffee with her, I feel like she is working me. You know what I mean? Like
I need to do that.
Yeah, you should have coffee with Anna, and
I will.
Just have a conversation with her. It's very therapeutic. Victoria says this whole attitude of "suck it up, Buttercup, just get over it," and how you've encountered
Oh,
that.
yes, all the time, because it's like the macho thing to do. It's very masculine. It's also, there's hints of that in the Christian world, like, oh, just pray about it, give it to God, it'll be fine. But actually, God's created us with emotions, with feelings. We're ripe to kind of get information from outside and how we store it. And it's a choice whether we want to open up and surrender to look at it. But it's painful. So, of course, we're going to say, suck it up, Buttercup. Who would want to go down a painful road? But you do, because at the end of it, things are really different. And there's treasure that's mined through going through the black tunnels, you know.
Oh, great answer. Jeff Allen says, how do you keep the bad stuff from creeping back in? What a
Good question. I think partly it's having good therapy and understanding what's happened to you and what you're feeling. Second is actually changing some habits. And that might involve some accountability partners. It might involve some apps these days that are great. It might involve journaling. But fundamentally, it's learning to be present with yourself. It doesn't just come. It's like we make some choices. Meditation's a good one to kind of just slow down and stop. As I say, journaling's a great one. God, we could do a whole load of seminars and stuff on this, Ronnie.
Yeah.
But it's habits. Habits take, as they say, 90 days to change. But we can't do it on our own. That's why we need the community, which is vital to get help and ask other people for help. Say, I'm struggling with this. Give them a call.
I think this is one of the more powerful components of recovery 12 steps. It's not just, I'm working these steps, because few people can work the steps alone.
Yeah.
They have to work them with others who are on the path. And I think that when it comes to resentments and forgiveness and overcoming traumas, that we're a little late coming to that realization that we need others. They haven't had to have hurt exactly like we have hurt, because we all hurt. But it can be tough to find even a handful of vulnerable people who are willing to do that work.
Yeah.
Nancy Gross,
another point quickly too is working out, for the person, I think it was Jeff that asked about to stop the black stuff creeping in, watching what your input is. So what are you reading? What are you talking about? What are you watching on television, to see what your triggers are that are going to trigger you back into where you were. Just for what it's worth.
Nancy Gross makes a great point. And Nancy, thanks for watching tonight. And I just know from Nancy's own journey, personal journey herself, committed Christian who has done extensive training with yoga and meditation. And she's had some of the same uphill battles, I think, Anna, that, not all of her Christian friends can understand that. But it's been a very powerful discipline for her. And I know for a fact that there's a whole circle of folks within Simple Faith in the community that have attached to that. And she makes a great point about something she's learned from some workshops, is that asking myself how I used to soothe or comfort myself as a child, and how that affects what I do now as an adult. Nancy, that is a great observation. Even how you articulate it there, because I can tend to comfort myself when things get really chaotic by getting really busy. Because that way my mind is occupied with work and I don't have to think about what's really going on. And somebody else might reach for the bottle or pills, but we're trying to do the same thing there. And I looked back, and Nancy Gross is helping me with my own therapy as I sit here in the dark on my porch, is that I realized that, and I had a very chaotic childhood and lots of wounds, lots of trauma. And I noticed that was my go-to solace, is that the reason that I could be and was a straight A student and so scholarly is I just used my studies to comfort myself. When it seemed like everything, had kind of gone to hell in a handbasket around me. So that's a good example of looking back to the patterns, as you say, of what you did as a child, and then what do you do now? But the trouble is, it isn't meeting your needs.
it doesn't help you to be who you were meant to be. And so we need to work on that and look at other ways. Yeah.
You got to go ahead, Garrett.
Yeah, I just have a quick little story I know you will absolutely love, and hopefully those listening will love. Graham, our oldest, is now 7, and one of his biggest hobbies is reading right before bed. So we ship him off to bed at 7:30, right? So just the other night, he comes out, and it's 9:30. He has this worried look on his face, and he's into this Dog Man book series. I know, I know.
I don't even know what that
Nobody here probably knows what it is, but it's just this kid's cartoon action jam-packed book. But what was really interesting is he's looking at the thesaurus, and in the back of the book, chapter 12, he's like, "What is resentment?" Because and the worried look he had on his face is because the author had put resentment is like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies.
Right.
And so he's like, why would the author talk about drinking poison and wanting someone to die? And we're like, it was a really cool teaching moment because we were able to sit down with him and say, no, what the author is actually trying to convey is that resentment is not healthy. It's not something healthy to hang on to. And then we started talking to him about forgiveness. But it's just, kind of funny, the timing of this conversation and everything we're talking about on Sundays. And really this conversation with you. So I just wanted to share that with you. I knew you'd probably get a chuckle out of that.
Yeah, that's good.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Anna, I just thank you so much. You don't have to listen to me talk about Doug and Anna both long to know that they have just become some of my dear friends, and their journeys are incredible. Mm-hmm. Their life together has been incredible, and beautiful family, and they are
what a gift they are to us.
They're a gift to the community. They're a gift to Simple Faith.
Thank you.
And again, because they're just so willing to share their experiences. I'll share a couple things, and then we'll wrap it up tonight because our time is coming close. I hope you would say a prayer for Cindy's dad, who's been a dementia patient in a care facility for the last several months in the middle of all this COVID. Mm-hmm. He's currently hospitalized. They're trying to figure out what's going on with him. He's not well at all. And pray for our son, Braden, who had a terrible ankle injury today. It's not broken, but he's got a ways to go. And our son, Bryce, is doing really great in Hawaii. But he had a situation that was very impactful yesterday. Mm-hmm. One of the young men in his company went AWOL and had reached out to Bryce with some suicidal intentions. Mm-hmm. And Bryce and his other soldiers were able to find him late in the day yesterday, early in the morning here. And he is getting the care he needs. Mm-hmm. And Anna, this would touch base with some of what we've talked to tonight. Bryce and I had a conversation earlier this morning. My son Bryce found a friend in high school who had taken his life, and that was just 5 years ago. And that was really Bryce had to retread some ground today. But took great comfort in the fact that Bryce's actions has helped save this young man's life. And so remember him, and Bryce was like, I don't understand why this stuff follows me around. And he's sort of got that gift, though, of being there. And that really is a gift. And being there and being a person that someone who's really hurting actually kind of threw a line to. And so remember him, and I appreciate that so much. Heavy topic tonight, mm-hmm. But Anna, again, thanks for contributing. We sort of pick up the theme for the next couple weeks on Sundays. So if you're like, oh my God, I can't take any more of that, maybe you can watch online. But thanks for bearing with us tonight. Anna, Doug, thanks for overcoming the technological difficulties.
Thank you. We appreciate you guys.
We've been sitting here on the porch.
Thank you. Thank you for having the conversation.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Really, yes.
It's gotten chilly out here, and I'm here for it. All of it. But thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching. Remember, we will see you Sunday in person, 9 and 10:30. And, Garrett, what time is that service going virtual?
10:45 Central Standard Time.
Central Standard Time, right here where you're watching right now. Y'all have a great time tonight. We'll see you Sunday.
Was a time of the preacher when a story begun. Choice of a woman and the love of a man, and how he loved her so dearly, he went out of his mind. Well, she left him for